so we can show the real estate community that we can have a safe event under control.
When was the last time you did one of these?
So the last time I did one of these was last year, a physical one last year. I did it at the Wharf. I had over 1,500 people. I had 27 projects. The Wharf was packed all the way from 5 o'clock to like about 11 o'clock, so it was crazy. A couple of sales came out of it. I actually picked up from the one in Fish Island. She had a couple of leads from there. One of the girls from campus had a couple of leads from there. And Mara Tanner, I believe, did a sale on there. So it was pretty good. So thank you very much. Thank you for supporting. I actually took the event online this year, which was very, very successful. Thanks to Danny Guerra. Called me one day when I was riding by, telling me how to set, how to mind. So I started thinking about it, and what I did was I brought it online. I didn't expect such a turnout for my events. I'm very thinking of who actually speaks, and it was a very good turnout. The lowest attendance I had was 485. The highest attendance I had 1,000. And for every single event, I had over 300 people seeing our videos. So it was very, very successful. I've had developers call me, agents from other states, agents from other countries. So it's been very, very successful. So first of all, thank you guys very much for being here. It's a pleasure to always, have you guys on my panel. I really appreciate it. Craig?
I'm just interested in we do that, but I always do. Well, then we're here. Just
no, we all had a conversation last night. We figured Fernando wear the tie, and then we just don't wear the ties. But yeah, it's a pleasure always having you guys here. And yeah, you can introduce yourself and then
So, for those who don't know me, my name is Daniel Guerra, Vice President of Fortune International Realty. We are obviously all development representatives here, and we work very well together. It's very great. Thank you, Jessie, for putting this event together. Thank you all for being here with us. We're looking forward to completing 2020 and starting understanding 2021. Together, I think we're seeing it's going to be doing very well.
Fernando Nunez.
Hi, how are you? Fernando Nunez, Executive Vice President of Sotheby, and development division, international division, and I'm the president. I'm very excited to see that you for always considering us and looking to be here. And as I was saying earlier, we're happy with ups and downs. We feel that we're going to be here in March, and we know what's going to happen but we're here again once more all together, so it's very exciting to finally on the woods and for your reply. I was excited about today. Thank you guys.
Jesse, Ottley.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. How good is it to be out and doing an event again? Oh my God, it's so good to connect. Zoom is wonderful, but there's so much to get lost in Zoom. There's so much. Just the few conversations that I've had here already. Wonderfully.
Much better.
So my name is Jessie. I'm the President of Development Sales for Cervera Real Estate. We're focused primarily on new construction, pre-construction development. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys to share some of the things that we've been through this year. I want to thank JC, who's over there. JC, thank you for your leadership this year because it made such a difference. And I think one of the silver linings of this entire disaster of this 2020 was where the leaders really stepped up. And you, from day one, stepped up and started to get the word out and started to sort of be a part of the solution, not part of the problem. So before we get going, I'd like to thank you for that.
Did what he said. Yes. Well done, Jessie. Thank you. Well, I'm Studnicky. I run two companies. A company called ISG. We do development sales like Sotheby's, like Cervera, like Fortune. I run RelatedISG, which is a real estate company here in South Florida. I'm very happy that Thomas Simpson is here. He's the president of our commercial division. Caroline Herbst is our executive VP. Ms. Lopez, our VP, runs several offices in South Florida. Thanks for being here. I don't do that. That's the thing. Because of that. I look busy. I'm not. This is a good country. I hope that. But no, they do a wonderful job, and I must tell you, and I am. Ever since I walked in this room, I kind of felt that New York City energy, and you're walking on the sidewalks of the city. And this is why Zoom's got to be part of the past. Exactly. Because you can't get this energy when you're looking at little rectangles at home drinking a cup of coffee. It's just not anywhere close to the same. I'm praying to God this time next year I get the Springsteen concert for example. And I'm sure I'm not going to do this thing that feels the same way. Let's pray this next finally seen some success that we return to a normal thing. We even start competing against each other for new listings. Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be amazing.
So that's me. Thank you for all for coming.
So once again, guys, thank you very much. I also want to let Ofizzina, Camilo is the developer for this building. I want to thank him. I want to thank Phil, which Phil's not here today. Phil Gutman, he's the president for VHS. Very, very close friend of mine, and allowed me to do this event here. Also, ARIA, which is the Asian Real Estate Association of America. They're an official sponsor of South Florida Real Estate RMI Showcase. So if you want to join, check out aria.org so you can go ahead and join. So we're going to go ahead and get started. You guys ready? All right, so we're going to start with you, Mazer. And then way down the mic. What were some of the challenges that you faced at the beginning of the pandemic?
Well, first of all, was the total uncertainty of what was to come. We were shut down, all of us, in March. And then we were shut down again in period, forced quarantine. So I felt a little afraid as a business owner. You have to pay bills regardless of the quarantine. I was paying rent, I was paying salary payroll. That was incredibly frightening. I thought in early March this thing would end around the end of April. And I know I'm not the only one that had that kind of optimism. So my first reaction was probably honestly fear. And then realizing I got to step up and hold the hands of everybody who works with me and let them know that I understand what you're feeling. There myself. I knew I wouldn't be able to see my kids, my grandkids who lived in New York. So it was honestly a very frightening time. You're watching the stats at Guerra, and there were making hockey rinks in the trade courts. You know, you knew that this happened. Our turn had to be soon. And eventually it did in New York and New Jersey. Such a horrific way. So, I go on and on, but I was feeling a healthy dose of fear. Jessie?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think a big part of our job as that hit is keeping people's heads straight, right? Managing the human component of it. Because we had the financial impact, everyone trying to adjust salaries and figuring out who's going to be, the sales center, who's going to be working, who's not going to be working. But there's so little we knew at the time when it first hit. And so there was a lot of fear. I think we all experienced that. We feel for our markets, feel for ourselves personally. And so, it was interesting how our goals, and that's why I commented on what DC's done this year, our sort of stepping up and starting taking on the human element of our business and managing the emotions through this. Because nobody knew where we were going, nobody knew where we were headed, what the outcome would be. So I would say that was our biggest challenge, was the first thing to keep people's heads straight. We had to then figure out all the logistics of operations, and sales centers, and travel plans, and all those things. But trying to make sure that the human side was taken care of was probably our biggest challenge at the onset.
Fernando. So I feel that the definition of this year has been adaptability. We need to adapt our business, and I feel that all of us, yourself, DC, ourselves, need to adapt the way we do the business. At the very beginning, yes, I was very scared. We shut down 50s of batteries. So I think we're going to sell something there. We're going to fire people. We need to what will happen. So yes, it was very scary. So the first 15 days was much like a huge cost reduction plan. We lowered the salaries of everyone in the world. We suspend all the calls, all the tough measures that. So for us, that we need to do these conversations. It's not so easy. At the same time, we need to reinvent our business and to digitalize the presentations from the videos of the sales galleries, of the sales models, the video channels, the social media channels, the Zoom platform, the go-to meetings, and all the mistakes that we have seen in the cameras where some of them we should have a blueprint of this year about the I have the best one was in the middle of our presentation, and when I switched, it was eating pizza for the 400 people. So I feel we all made mistakes in camera, so it was a very interesting year. But the reality is I'm very proud of what we have achieved as a community. I feel that we have managed to change the perception of it with all these meetings. We have all been targeting all over the world, trying to grow communities. We want a tremendous amount of databases in order to expand our evolution footprint. So I feel that we were a little bit lucky because we're clear. So the fundamentals that we have as correct conversations and presentations from the tax structure, from the cost of living, from the more affordable real estate in comparison to some of our key bigger markets has helped us. And I feel that at the end, we are one of the winners of this pandemic, and we're seeing already with the immigration flow that we are witnessing single family homes out there, record low, based on the market, inventory, and feel that we're very healthy market. And the combo is homes that are picking up because in a way with the price differential that we apply the vaccine arrival, that we see that as Greg also spoke about the short supply, that is more evident than ever. We're going to see the resale market moving, and eventually next year we're all going to be busy getting new projects. So that's a good thing. So this year I think and I feel that we also look at how to work in a totally different way. And I feel that some of these new practices that are here to stay, some others hopefully are going to be doing this more in person, but I feel that for all of us, we feel professionals, and I feel that that's the biggest hope in the future.
So, following my colleagues up here, absolutely. The first thing was concern, fear, which way we were going to go, and then we started taking action. So, reducing our footprint as a company. We made a commitment to not fire anybody. We wanted to keep all of our staff intact and work together as a family to get through this process. And we had to figure out how to pivot and make ourselves relevant and stay relevant. And that was a conversation that I had with Jessie, which was not just us and ourselves as a company, but as an industry. How do we stay relevant? How do we pivot and get in front of people? And that taking everything virtual was brilliant. It really helped continue our message. And getting that message out to all of the industry, all of our members. Those of us up here, as you see, we are competitors, but we came together, even as competitors, to maintain the industry relevant and to keep getting information out. We started closings right in March in downtown the route, and we had to figure if we were going to close any of the 250 units that we were starting March as the pandemic closed. Or as the pandemic hit and as the county closed. Unfortunately, we didn't have a single default in that project, so that really boded well for how strong our industry was. And then as your incoming president for the Realtor Association, I had to carry a whole other set of obligations, meeting with government officials, maintaining our industry relevant, keeping a real estate as an essential service, because where you're going to shelter in place if you can't get a roof over your head, right? So we made sure to protect that. So we're burning the candle at both ends, really, between keeping our projects, our company rolling and moving forward through this process, and keeping the industry afloat. And I was really pleased to see how so many members of the community, the real estate industry, came together to work together to continue that lift, and as Justin said, be leaders in getting through this all together. So I think that's what's going to help us build through 2021 as well. And we've improved a lot of processes. So I kind of feel like COVID wasn't a changer, it was an accelerator. So many companies that weren't technology had to jump into it. So many industry processes that were maybe archaic had to be evolved. And we're going to see a lot of new buyers coming our way because of our good weather, our good tax situation, which we're already experiencing. So COVID really became an accelerator more so than a changer. And we'll expand on that more in the questions.
Yeah, I mean, that's very important because there's a lot of people that have been questioning the Miami Association. Danny has been involved. I've been involved. This year I'm actually sitting with Danny on the board. Miami Association has done so much for South Florida and has affected the entire state. So that's something that you guys should know about. And if anything, you can talk to Danny and myself after that. So we'll go to the next question. What has been one of the biggest challenges during the pandemic for your agents selling general real estate to be able to perform, and how did your firm help the agents perform?
So I think the biggest challenge was figuring out how to quickly pivot and stay relevant, and that was the message that we carried. In fact, the original Zoom communications that we did, whether it was through the association or with JC or other operations that we ran within our company, was not so much really selling how wonderful that one unit we have in a project was, but how to stay relevant, how to stay in communication with your customers, with your brokers, with your relationships, and get out that process first. Being compassionate about what everybody was going through, and still staying in communication, even though you weren't able to touch people face to face or physically or at lunch. The normal ways that we were used to staying in communication. And once we got through that pivot and we realized that now we've done enough Zoom and we've been zoomed out and it's enough looking at the Brady Bunch squares. How to get back to work, how to start making. I think one of the really great things, talking about the closings that we were doing at campus and at Doral and other projects, was that last year we had been fighting for 5 years to get virtual notaries approved. It was not legal in the state of Florida. And we managed to solve that at the end of the year last year during legislation in Tallahassee, and it went into effect in January. Who knows what timing, right? So we were able to facilitate closings not just for ourselves, but for all of you in that process. So really, it was how to evolve into staying relevant and being able to continue to do business in this new process.
Thank you for all you guys have done, because the organization saved us. With a lot of our agents have been using it since then. But what we have done this year is we understood that we need to invest in technology. So in the middle of the pandemic, we launched our new website. It was a $500 million investment in a year that we were concerned about financial issues, but we decided that was the best route, and now we're reaping the benefits with triple-digit growth in terms of traffic. We're seeing new markets that they were there, but now we have extremely relevant. I think Chicago being a big surprise, California, we're seeing even Colorado, we're seeing other markets that were not so obvious, really bringing it in. And this digital platform itself, this year the agents we launched what we call the digital playbook. That's about 20 different tools that help improve the social media channels, about how to, in a way, to generate automatic templates for the listing with Studio One. So we launched so many new tools. So all the company was focusing trying to build the technological suite to make it more and more efficient. It's not that we didn't have it, but it was also well integrated. So this time we thought it was something to them a little bit without going driving 3 or 4 hours a day, going from one meeting to another. So just sitting and working. It has a salesperson on the research side, on the digital side, and I feel that now this new package is going to help us tremendously for the coming next year. So that investment is done, and now we just need to the benefit and continue to improve and we launch amazing trainings for the agents, mostly mine, of course. But we truly believe that as a salesperson grows the organization, besides acquisitions, of course, have been very important for us. We have 5 acquisitions this year. So we have surpassed for the first time 1,000 agents. 3.7 billion so far this year in sales, so we're able to keep growing. And the idea is to try to get the best technology available for the agents. That's what we're working on.
So I think the question was also in general real estate, and one of the challenges that we had was getting into condo buildings, because condo buildings have shut down. So we had to work together with associations. I'm the president of the building. We shut down our building. We would make appointments for people to come so that we could keep the whole experience very quarantined. And that was one of the pivots that we made. And that was a challenge for our general real estate agents as well. In general, across the board, it was very much also talking to our clients, and in the sea of communication out there, where much either one of the news networks, nobody's saying anything, it's just a lot of noise. Part of our job was to communicate with our clients in our market in Latin America. I had started with Zoom platform in 2018, before this whole thing. So, we traveled a lot. We traveled, 100 times a year for any of our projects. So every week, we're somewhere. And so our goal originally was to create a more efficient travel schedule by starting to reach out on a digital platform with Zoom. So in 2018, I signed up with Zoom and we started to use that. So by the time April hit, we had our Zoom presentations, our agents were trained, so the transition for us was a very smooth transition on the project side. Our general real estate agents started to adopt it and adapt to that change as well. Like I said, I was in here adaptation, right? And one of the big takeaways I found this year for South Florida is you guys as a community, how you work together. The realtor community, thank you to Daniel also for everything you've done on the board, but how the real estate community pull together and work together. And that doesn't happen in every market. I mean, create this market up north, the way realtors interact and work together is not the same here. So I think it was very much a testament to how you guys had listings, dealt with people who had buyers in certain buildings and how we work together. So that was a big takeaway from this year of how our agents adapted, especially in the general estate, to collaborate more and more. And we all get into this. We all help each other.
Some of you may know how to July, and George Perez, probably on the other side of the RelatedISG, made me the president. I've never met this gentleman ever. So to me, it was like managing an airplane company. I didn't know what the hell to do. He said, real estate will be fun. Let me give you an observation, because most of my work is project sales, development sales. I am, like Jessie and Fernando and Danny said, I'm blown away at how quickly the general realtors adapted. Say, once we got past April, guys like you finally let us back in the buildings again. No, I understand you have a show. I'm so amazed at how, here's the big distinction I learned. General realtors follow demand. When we're on project sales, we have to create demand. We have to make sales happen sooner than the natural market would. That's the magic of the marketing that, Cervera, Fortune, Sotheby's, and ISG brings to the table. It's not easy. Whoa, it's not easy. Creating that demand. But following demand is what you all do, and you did it superbly. Whether they were from New York or New Jersey, Connecticut, Colorado, California, Massachusetts, wherever they were from, most of them wanted access because you all quickly figured out that social distancing for 2 words and that's it. And not so one thing that you can sell them that's an easily managed concept. We have apps. And God, did you all go for it. Whether you use technology, whether you burn shoe leather, whatever you did, and you followed demand so quickly, tirelessly. I've also come to learn something else about you, general realtors, that I use respectfully, because you do eat what you kill. You're not on salaries, you're not on big drugs. As Carolina Gertz is talking, it can be a very lonely business when you're not really feeling the support from your seniors. You're out there all by yourself. And this year, I had the silver lining because the virus, Danny pointed out, it did act as an accelerator. But within the acceleration, you guys stepped up and you never stopped. You guys don't seem to mind the work. I think what you mind, what I mind are negative people. And I don't mind the work. And you clearly did this. My big challenge, JC, were the project salespeople. Because the more I bragged about the success of single-family home sales, the more I started seeing these long faces from the people who were on the projects because they weren't getting that kind of action. Let's all be candid, they weren't. It was general real estate, particularly single-family homes that led the grade in 2020. Project sales, no. Maybe my worst year. Maybe not my worst year. A really bad one. A really bad one. 2020. I mean, as Jessie pointed out, I couldn't even get into the buildings for a long time. So that was really my big challenge. But I got some help in the fourth quarter. Because, the jokes aside, condo associations started letting realtors back into the buildings. But more than that, you all who follow demand are following the request of your customers and now find it okay to go back into buildings. Because we're wearing masks. Because there's hand sanitizers everywhere. Because maybe this thing, is not as scary as it was in March and April. And now the project sales are starting to pick up again. Also, as we all know, there's not many houses for sale anymore. The houses that are selling fast. So all of a sudden, that condo around the corner is not such a bad deal. And the buyers, especially if they're from the Northeast, they're not nearly as daunted about going into a building as perhaps the local people. Anyway, we're starting to see you all back again. So my big challenge for keeping the project salespeople inspired, motivated, believing, studying got a lot easier. But that was perhaps my biggest challenge for this year. My compliments to the general realtors. Oh my God, did you react? Did you respond? And thank God now the pendulum's still a little back towards condo land because we needed it.
Alright, so we'll start with alright, so what has been one of the most interesting trends for 2020 in real estate in your opinion? Why? And do you foresee the same trends being consistent in 2021?
Well, we all kind of just touched on it. Houses, social distancing made houses super short, combined with the lowest mortgage rates in the history of our country. Now, we all knew that, Fernando, I'll let you talk about this because this will work in your wheelhouse. That quantitative easing that the U.S. put into place in April and May, it's now having the desired effect with the Mexico peso when you come to get some central level, you do it. It's getting more affordable now for our Latin firms. So that's been the one thing that surprised me. But I think it will continue in 2021. Yeah, for the first 6 months. But I'm going to tell you, I was going to build this story earlier. I'm reading a story in the New York Times a few weeks ago about cities in the United States. Cities in the United States, urban areas for the last 15 to 20 years, is where baby boomers have been moving to. Our kids are out of college for the most part. We don't want the house, the lawn, the pool. We don't want everything. The house became popular again in 2020. We don't want to do it anymore. 15, 20 years ago, it's just little by little. We're moving back to urban areas. Because everything's cool in the urban area. Downtown Miami, you got the Asian Art Center, you got AAA, you got the Perez Art Museum, you got the Cross Science Museum, you got restaurants from the design district to Brickell that can keep you busy 7 nights a week, 52 weeks a year. Everything's in the cool stuff is in the urban areas. But urban became very unpopular in 2020, and we all know why. Like the Roadrunner, everybody did it out of the cities and into the burbs, all over the United States, including here in South Florida. So what do I think? It's not my own thought. I'm doing a lot of reading about this. If this vaccine has some success, and even Fauci is predicting or forecasting that by summer we may actually enter herd immunity in the United States. And I think the Roadrunner is going to do enough face. And they're going to come pouring back in the cities where the real estate markets are. Because condo prices are down artificially. Housing prices in the burbs are up big time because of the virus. So my great prediction, if you can hang in there for 6 months, or even not, get your buyers to buy condos in urban areas now. This guy sitting in the Capitals, he's got one of Aston Martin's one of the most exciting projects in downtown Miami. Una on Brickell Avenue is another one. When people start going back to the cities in 2021, Diana Caceres and Jessie are going to be two very popular people in Miami. And that's my great prediction, Jessie.
Thank you, Brady. And there have been a lot of like these micro trends this year. Out of the cities, back to cities. People don't want to come back to offices anymore. People like single family homes. And I'm not sure that any of that is really sustainable. One of the big conversations that we've had all through this year is talking about what happened after 9/11. The people said they'd never go back into a building again, they'd never fly an airplane again. Their lives have changed forever. People come back. And yes, it takes a couple of months to make new habits. And yes, we all learned how to do that. I ran into a realtor here on the way in the elevator today, and he walks in the elevator with his laptop screen. And I said, "Are you bringing your home office back to work?" He said, "This actually is from my home office." So I don't think we'll come flooding back, but I think we'll trickle back, and we'll get back to more like it was than more like it has been. I firmly believe that, and I agree 100% with that whole idea of urban living. It was 2 days ago I was driving around, and it took me half an hour to get to go from my office in Brickell to Aston Martin in downtown Miami because of the traffic. But suddenly people are back. Suddenly the snowboards are coming down here. And so when people who live out in the burbs start realizing that, in about 6 months from now, they say, listen, this is just not sustainable. But I will tell you what I think is the most important trend that's happened last year, and it's not going to continue for 2021. It's going to continue for the next 20 years. Is that Florida and South Florida is on fire. But this is the hottest city in America right now. They're moving here from the Northeast, they're moving here from California, they're moving here from South America, they're moving here from Europe. And all the fundamentals that we've been talking about for years that were organically happening, they were trickling in, and we're starting to see an uptick in the growth, we're starting to see this, and as Danny said, it turned into an accelerator. And boom, overnight, suddenly you've got the tech companies moving here. You've got the big funds moving here. You've got all these captains of industry moving here. What does that mean? It's not one wealthy guy. They're bringing their offices. They're bringing their capital. They're bringing their investment. And what does that demand? It demands a higher price. It demands a different experience. We're selling at Aston Martin, units in the $2 million to $50 million range. Whoever thought of a $50 million unit in downtown Miami never sold it because it was never there. And this morning in the paper, they sold a $33 million penthouse on the beach.
Yeah.
So those buyers are coming. Those buyers are coming for you guys. They'll be here. They'll add to our city. They'll build our city. And that's not going to be a 2021 thing. That's going to be the next 10 years, the next 20 years. So we're all in the capital right now, all of us. And now's the time to ramp up, prepare your year outlook, prepare your budgeting, spend money on yourself, lean into it, because the money will be here, the buyers will be here, and we are also blessed enough to be in this market now. And that's the trend that's happening.
Thank you, guys. If we consider our companies combined, we're pretty much 80% of the market. Yeah. And the way that I see our job is to be ambassadors of the city. We have been all over the world promoting what we're all about. And I feel that all the projections and all the main ideas we're throwing, and I read that month because from your ISG report that a tremendous good for our community by trying to position Miami as a city. You did a remarkable job in your business department. But I feel that our job as you say, trying to create demand and bring them here. And I feel that 2021, besides everything that I agree 100% with both of you, I feel 2021 will bring again the international component. And let me explain you why. We were having 4 years where our main policy was trying to restrict immigration. So this, in a way, is one less horrible. We see people from the Middle East that they didn't feel comfortable coming here. People from Latin America, they were concerned of having more restrictions coming for us as single home buyers. We are seeing then the evaluation of dollar in the last pretty much 8 weeks. We recovered Mexico, the Mexican peso recovered pretty much 20% from the peak, 11% the Brazilian real. So we are gaining affordability in the international markets. And that trend will continue to be so because as China recovers and the commodity prices start to pick up, all the exporting countries of commodities in Latin America start going to have a better exports, and that will help the balance of trade and in turn the devaluation of the home country will diminish in a situation where the recession in the home countries and the possibility of making money in real estate in the home countries is extremely limited. So we're going to have huge influx of people because of social unrest, employees, and we would expect will happen in Chile. We're all seeing Chile right now. It's the first time that Chile has become as important or more so than Argentinian buyers in the first time. So we're seeing Mexicans that feel really driving the high end. I assume that as a market in Mexico to be one of the main buyers. So I feel that all these are coming together. We're going to see a very strong international demand again, and a very strong local domestic demand as well. So it's going to be a double dip for the first time in 12 years when we have almost no inventory to sell. We have less than 3,000 units from here to Palm Beach in New Delhi for sale, which is the lowest we ever had in the last 10 years, since 10 years. So that would be limited supply, higher demand. We're expecting this year 375,000 people moving to Florida. And the relocation of Blackstone, the knowledge department, the Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, all this type of thing are going to be top-paid executives. So our market is the luxury real estate market in Hong Kong. I think will benefit tremendously. The main difference that I've seen that last year, especially last quarter, we're seeing that our projects were more successful than the projects were already built. When we have a standing inventory, people are coming now. They want to get something now, but that's the one that we're moving, especially from the Northeast. But next year, with international buyers, we're going to open up more the pre-construction market. So I'm expecting some new projects hitting the market, but the reality is they're not going to be ready until 2025-26. That's the reality. So what's going to happen with all these 350,000 people coming to Florida for the next 5 years? So that's what we're going to lead the capital appreciation, and what Craig is saying is right. If you buy a piece of land, especially some level of waterfront view, you're not going to make it. And for us, we're going to be outpriced. The local people we're not going to be able to buy these properties because when these people will come here, there will be salaries from New York and so on. The prices are going to go up. And our salaries will not go with the same velocity than these relocation executives. So the moment is now to take advantage of the interest rate, take advantage of the deals that we have in the market, and to try to get a piece of some level of work from the home. And because I feel that's going to drive the market in 2020.
Let me give you a different perspective of the trends with some stats and facts. For the year, MLS data shows that we're down about 9% for the market in real estate. Now, why is that? In January, February, we took off, and we were, and all of a sudden, pandemic, March, hit the brakes, and we have this massive freeze. Everybody froze, didn't know what we were going to do, didn't know what we should buy. Contracts that were pending were canceled or put on hold, and we basically froze the market. Now, all of a sudden, starting towards the end of the year, talking about the fourth quarter, things are blowing up. And our year-over-year numbers for October were positive 16%. So that's an enormous shift from what we lived in the beginning. Everybody worries about what asset class is doing better. We all know that single-family homes are doing very well. They're doing so well that we're about a 38% lack of inventory where we were before. So we were already at all-time low inventories. We had about 4 to 5 months of inventory of single-family homes, but now it's dropped drastically. Prices are through the roof, what have you. Condos, we weren't too bad because this was not 2008 where we had 38,000, 36,000 units to sell that were empty. We only have a few thousand units available, as we all mentioned, but we're having absorption. We're still getting some absorption. In fact, when you look at condo numbers, we're only down a little bit more than 2% in condo sales. So it's again, comparing to the last year. Okay? So that's really not that freaky. It's nothing like what we experienced in 2008. So the market is actually still pretty strong, and I do believe we're going to run into a lack of inventory going forward. You're right, the Northeast is a lot more amenable to moving into these buildings. The international market has always been strong, even when everybody was worried about immigration and issues. I remember everybody saying, no Mexican's going to buy in Miami. Mexico's been one of our best buyers for the past few years. In fact, this year, out of all the states, we receive about 22% of the international buyers in Florida. So our numbers are still expanding. We're benefiting from the other states that are also moving here. So we're getting more and more fuel, more accelerants to benefit us. And as we mentioned, these companies like Goldman Sachs, Amazon coming down this way. Goldman Sachs moves here, and I'm going to tell you, it's not just going to be Goldman Sachs. It's going to be all of Wall Street. They're all coming. Because if they lead that charge, everyone's going to follow them. They're kind of the trendsetter in that process. And their vendors as well. So you have your staff, your employees, your vendors. It's just all coming to benefit us. So we are in a fortunate position as Miami and Florida in this unforeseen, unfortunate situation the world has experienced. So I think that we're seeing facts that are only pushing us in a positive direction, and the writing's on the wall. And what we've done in October is we're going to continue in November when those numbers come out, in December as well, and on into 2021.
Thank you. So, what has your organization been doing to communicate with the international market that South Florida is strong and moving forward? And how has the traffic been in the past couple of months with the projects currently present? What has your organization been doing to communicate with the international market that South Florida is strong and moving forward?
I think we've already touched on it, and our communication was already strong internationally. We had been doing a lot of technology before, as Jessie mentioned, and again, we just really accelerated that. Our general real estate agents also jumped into it and started using a lot more technology. And as we started at the beginning, stay relevant, be humane, keep in contact as many different platforms as possible with your customers, so that you're not out of sight, out of mind. So that was our process from before, and again, we just accelerated it and started doing more. The international buyer has been here. They never went away, even through this process. Most of our closings in Doral were either overseas or at distance. And so we were able to accomplish that. You know, we're seeing a lot of international buyers at Una. We're seeing international buyers at 57 Ocean. In fact, our more luxury product is actually doing better. You know, if you break it down into your niches, right? So, $400,000 and $500,000 units, probably the most banked up. But you know, plus $1 million is where we're actually seeing our traction. So, like, you know, as to Craig's point, you know, projects like Una, Austin Martin, 57 Ocean, those projects are seeing soft movement early on, but now towards fourth quarter, it's just so much better. So I don't think we really ever lost the international market. In fact, international business on the commercial side is also receiving a lot of stuff. If you look at the different asset classes, the two strongest asset classes right now are multifamily and industrial in the commercial world. Getting hurt, obviously malls, retail, and office has had some issues. You know, fortunately down the road here, we signed up American Airlines just before the pandemic, locked them in for 2 years, so good for that. But a lot of those leases are those long term, so you didn't see office get that much suffering. We're gonna see some commercial pivots. There's gonna be repurposing. You're gonna see probably a lot of retail, especially the big box, you know, reducing their footprint and working out of warehouses or retail warehouses where you go in and you look at one TV or one mattress or one item that they don't have to store them all in the big box, and then there's going to be a truck that's going to come out of Doral or Homestead and deliver to you that day when you picked in that one little store. So we're going to see that repurposing shifting, but we still need more multifamily. We still need more healthcare, ACLFs. So you'll see these malls shifting. There's the restaurants that are closing, unfortunately. There'll be new restaurants that come out. So this process will evolve, and commercial will continue to be strong as well.
So building on Danny's thoughts, yes, we're seeing for one commercial a tremendous amount of international buyers looking for commercial opportunities, especially on the multi-family side. This year, we had the amazing type of launching Creative HQ in March, which was an office component. We had a very decent run on the reservation side, and then the people thought that the office would not going to exist anymore. And we were hoping that would be our main bridge to Latin America. Our portfolio today, like Villa Valencia in here for Gables, or Royal Palm in Boca, so 1000 Museum, they are very much focused on the local and domestic buyers. With exception Villa Valencia, we have a few Mexican buyers. The rest of the portfolio is very not international. So we have focused only on the high-end countries where the social is better than $1 million and up, that it has been Brazil and Mexico historically. And the rest, we have faded away a little bit as an organization. We decided that our portfolio was not the best fit. Yeah, we invited to these proposals. We do everything we can, but we have not really focused on these markets, and we expect that to change in 2021. All this year, in the last 2 years, we have been very, very strong in reaching out to the Northeast. In Chicago, we have leveraged our affiliates. We have a presence in 40 states, and we are opening up these channels. And unfortunately, from the new development side, when we do events with our affiliates, not necessarily they send us the buyer for the 1000 Museum, they send referrals to our agents that at the end, they end up buying in our project. So 23% of our sales are non-broker related, that is very high, but 18% is with our own agents. And I guess you have that as well, along with your, both of you have been very good at attracting their own agents. So I feel that that's been the trend, but we expect that to change and to be more active with Latin Americans in 2021 as we launch less priced nominal units to the market. Let's say that $1 million less. Our average is 2.2 million in about $875 per square foot. So that for Latin America is not the most convenient thing to market.
So to think about the question is, what do we do for our Latin American clients? What was very important is that we told people, and for the same reason they've been buying for the last 20 years, they're buying in America for the fundamentals. They're buying in America for the security. They're buying in America for the stability. They're buying in America for the wealth. They're buying in America for the great Bank of America. And what this country did and how this country reacted to the COVID crisis, with the CARES package, that was $2.2 trillion that went boom straight into the economy and flowed out. And I mean, if you're a restaurant worker, maybe you didn't get as much as you need, but no other country was doing this. This is why people bought in America for the last 100 years, and that's why they'll keep buying in America. And that's the message that we pushed out, and that's exactly the truth. And the response was phenomenal. We have a product when we launched the HQ. The office component, we had the Nativo Residences, which is the first building designed for short-term rental. Even through COVID, I was selling 33 units out a month at Nativo before COVID, and we had just converted from reservations to contracts in January, February, March, and then we rolled into this whole COVID crisis, but we kept selling through this, and we kept selling through it, making 5, 6, 7, 10 sales a month, even in the midst of this. And you got to understand, you know, why if you have a standing inventory where the New Yorkers will come down and they'll buy a condo in Brickell or they'll buy a home in Palm Beach because they need to make that move now. Pre-construction sales is a tough gig because you're saying, listen, this is a great opportunity and I'm going to give it to you 2 or 3 years from now. That's a tough sell. In the middle of the crisis where, you know, well, I love the idea, I love the opportunity, but the world is going to end tomorrow, so I didn't go put my deposit just yet. So that was the hill we had to climb. But there was enough confidence in the U.S., there was enough confidence in our government, and in this country as a whole, forget the politics, but enough longevity for people to say, you know what, no matter how bad it gets in the U.S., it'll be better than how it is in any other country that we're in. And you started to see how the COVID was impacting their markets, how their politics was impacting their markets. In Argentina, their response to their stimulus package was going to the top 1% of families and charging them more tax. That's how they paid for their stimulus. So I think that was the biggest message that we put out, and I think it's so important. And again, it's a privilege, it's a blessing. I'm from Australia. But every morning I wake up in this country and I see what we have and the opportunity that we have, not only being in this country, but in being the business that we're in, that it's an essential business, essential service. We are so phenomenally blessed. And we've been able to come through this with that kind of message.
That's great message. That was well done. All of you, well done. I don't have much really to add to that other than this. I'm going to probably amplify something Jessie just said. What did we tell our Latin networks during the pandemic? I knew that Colombia, for example, was on shutdown. Argentina was on lockdown. Brazil finally went on lockdown. So I'm not going to be seeing a lot of these people. So what am I going to tell them? So we focused on 2 things. We focused on how the United States as a country was responding to this crisis more economically than medically, because the advances economically were impressive, particularly when we printed $7 trillion to keep the country from slipping into a recession. That's impressive. Now, that was impressive to me. I wasn't born in Australia. I was born in New Jersey. I've been living through all my life, and that blew me away that we responded like that. Not to mention that we lowered the interest rates to the lowest levels in the history of our country. So I published that data to remind them what we just said. This is our country. Man, I'm from here, but you are all part of this now too. What a country that we can respond that quickly. And then Chairman Powell had that kind of vision that this was going to be a serious pandemic that was going to last a long time, about being chairman of the Fed. So that's what I did. That's what we did. Yeah, we also, now get back to the Miami report kind of stuff. We sprinkled our Latin brokers with a lot of data about how houses were selling. But we had to give them why. I didn't want to brag. Houses are selling. Look at us. We're so cool. No, houses are selling because people are very mindful of 2 words: social distancing. And that's why houses are flying off the shelf. Condos, I told them the truth, not so much during the second quarter, during the third quarter. But now we're trying to update them. Fernando just said it was just the 3,000 developer units, Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County. That's nothing. Guys, that's like 0. And when you look at what's in the pipeline of projects under construction, you know, with the exception of an Aston Martin and a Luna and 57 Ocean, it's like 0. It's almost, I called the supply shop a couple years ago, and now I actually am going into 2021 kind of shocked because there ain't that much left. So what I try to do, I'm telling you, you got the same problem I've got. You got to keep those Latin brokers informed about what's really out there for sale. One little piece of point, and then we'll go on to the next question, but I had a young man from Bogota, Colombia, yesterday in our Brooklyn City Center office. And he's with a great young man that works for us, Danny Caceres. And Danny says, boss, I need your help. This guy wants to know He sees this as a great buying opportunity, but is this going to be another 2008? Well, no, these are the questions people ask, right? I mean, this is you know, like that, one is apples and one is oranges. This has nothing whatsoever to do with 08. And when I asked a few qualifying questions, his real concern was, is there still like tens of thousands of condos out there for sale? So it was an inventory supply kind of question. And if they're still confused south of the border, unconfuse them. Give them the data. Because we really are on fire. Houses are, condos are next. This time next year, I think we're going to be really shocked at what the price of residential real estate is commanding all over South Florida, particularly mortgage rates stay as predicted as low as they are now.
Very interesting. So, last question. So, how do you foresee the market in 2021? And do you guys think it's a great idea to launch a project next year? And when during next year should be a good time for a project?
That's not the last question. That's 3 questions. I'm just wondering. Number one, I think I already touched on it myself. I think the next 6 months is going to be just like what you've seen in the last 6 months. Single-family homes are doing great. Watch those condos, particularly in the urban areas, come back. Do I think next year's a good time to launch a project? A year ago, I said on one of my Miami report presentations, 2020 is the year. Developers are going to launch pre-construction. Of course, I didn't know anything about this virus. I think that next year would be an ideal time, but I will tell you, Jessie touched on it, it's very hard to sell Americans. Very hard, pre-construction. If developers start next year, most developers are held to a 50 to 60% pre-sale requirement, which means we have to sell half the units in the building before they put a shovel in the ground. Try doing that to a guy from New Jersey. You gotta wait 3 years, you gotta wait 4 years, you gotta wait 5 years before you can get the keys to that 3-bedroom with the wraparound balcony. No way. Americans are into immediate gratification. I might buy a building that's under construction, but not great. You're gonna wait like 18 months for pre-sale and 3 years to build this. No way. You need the lap buyer. So I'm telling you, developers are sharp ones, sharp women. They know they need the lap buyer in Miami to meet the existing pre-sale conditions imposed by the commercial lenders. You need the lap buyer. So do I think it would be a great time? Yeah. Will the lap buyer come back next year? I think they will, and let's hope they will. Because if my final thing is if resale prices climb next year, like I expect they will, because of the lack of supply and super low mortgage rates, then the resale prices per foot are becoming so high, developers are going to want to start building it. Today, what we call the ceiling, the price per foot, will become floor. They will. They just will. We've seen this cycle before. But you need, in order for developers to launch, you need Latin America here in South Florida.
Thanks, Craig. And you're right. So, and they'll be buying your product. They'll be buying from the city center, the New Yorkers, the US buyers. That's what they're buying. And they see the opportunity of the outstanding inventory that, as we were talking about, is dwindling very quickly. So there's incredible opportunity there. I think they're also starting to buy in buildings, as you said, but under construction.
Yeah.
So if it's under construction, in Aston Martin, we have been selling lots of exits in the last 4 years. Now we're 18 months, 24 months away from delivering the keys to your Aston Martin residences. So the Americans are starting to come in. Now's the time they call the interior designer and say, here's a floor plan, I want you to design my unit. So the Americans are starting to come into those projects. We'll break ground in the Gables and the Gables residences in February. And so that project is about 24 months away from delivery as well. And that's an investment, a product where buyers can buy it, they can live in it full time, or they can rent it daily, short-term rental, and it's furnished, finished, and turnkey. So that kind of product, I think the answer also partially is the type of product that's going to come to market. A product that is designed for South Florida, that we have so many tourists, we have so many transient population that you can buy a residence, you can use it when you're here, drop the keys at the front desk and have it monetize and work for you when you're not here. That kind of product is resonating exceptionally well in the market. But I also think next year, I agree, it's going to be a tremendous year to start. Developers, the smart guy, they see the lack of inventory, they see the timing, But I also think one of the changes that we're making in Nativo, for example, is we're making these buildings post-COVID buildings. And I think that's going to change the value of real estate moving forward. I think you will see buyers come in 5 years' time and say, is this a pre-COVID or post-COVID building? You know, at Nativo, the ownership group, the Gables family office, is also the chairman of Norwegian Cruise Lines. They're spending $9 million per ship retrofitting their ships with all this COVID-friendly ionization of the air, filtration system. They're changing the entire cruise industry. We're using that same technology in our building, but we're not retrofitting, we're building it. Before it even gets to this stage, that AC unit, everything is being done to be a post-COVID building. So any new buildings coming online next year will be post-COVID buildings with all of that built into them. So I think that'll be exciting for our market as well.
I agree 100% with Greg in terms of without the Latin American buyers to reach reselling requirement is nearly impossible for 100 plus type of UK buildings. That's the reality. So I think that they're coming back. It will be like a gradual as the travel restrictions are lifted, the people more confident, the vaccines are kicking in. So I wouldn't launch a project in the first quarter that is very large in a way, with a lot of units, because unfortunately the market will not be able to absorb that quickly as needed. Now, what is believe that 2021 will be the new development cycle. All of us are going to be very busy designing buildings, preparing to launch, a lot of job for evolution and company like yourself, trying to put all the things together. But I see there is majorly two projects that are easy. Whether you go the virtual or Royal Palm or Villa Valencia route, that like less than 50 units, very local, domestic, like a lower term delivery time, and this you can manage to get some early adopters and some domestic buyers and so on, and you don't need so much like in America. So these are going to be fairly good options, especially moving north. If you go to Broward, Palm Beach, or even Vero Beach, and our presence there, I feel that that's going to be a very good product for single-family home communities who will continue to thrive. And then, or you go to the other component that is an Antigua route, the legacy, the hotels. They are more investment-driven, a lot of units under $650,000, that where the Latin American buyers are still present, and you can still buy. Latin America is seen as a continent, and they do feel it's one fits all, but it's not. If you go for under $500,000, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, they start becoming important markets. If your unit makes calls for $750,000 to $1.5 million, then you're in trouble, because you can only come pretty much from Brazil, somehow Argentina, and Mexico. So depending the unit makes the location, it changes dramatically the composition of your buyers. And if you understand buyer demographics well, when you do the product definition stage and you need pre-sales, you're going to be for a scary moment. So I feel that our job would be to time out perfectly well the launchings and the demographics and how they're going to play out during the lifetime of the project. Because towards the end, you're going to be larger units for the expat, the relocations, and the domestic buyers, the empty nesters, and all this we need to have it. So the project needs to find the right balance between affordability at the beginning to reach the requirement and be able to tap international markets, and some strong unit mix in a way that will attract the end users towards the end of the development cycle. So that's the timing that is going to be interesting, and I feel that the marketing plan will change 3 or 4 times during the lifetime of the project to be adapting all the time. And I feel that that's going to be our job. We're going to measure this timing correctly, and I feel that we have both a lot of experience. We're going to be able to give good advice on development.
Before I pass on to Danny, I want to go off what Danny said earlier, and I don't think we lost in Latin America. We did not lose Latin America. We sell well over $100 million a year at Aston Martin. This year, after everything we went through, I think we're like $5 million off where we were last year. 1 unit. To give you an idea, and I like what Danny said earlier, is look at the facts. Look at the percentage of condo sales are down. It's the minimums. They're small numbers. We're seeing now buyers come from Latin America. So we were selling through the pandemic. Now that with the vaccines, what Craig was saying earlier, I think you're going to see that uptick again. But we never lost them. So listen to the facts, understand who's buying, and we are all. Thank you, Craig, for all your reports. They're so useful. And we're all have a ton of information, and part of our job this coming year is to get that information to you guys so that you are armed and dangerous when you talk to your clients, whether they're local, from the Northeast, or from South America.
Yeah, I think you all have really hammered the question pretty well. To expand on some of what we're saying, to dovetail on Jessie, it's definitely getting that information out there, getting the facts out there, because there's a lot of called fake news of what's going on. It's not only Miami that's on fire. There's lack of inventory throughout Florida. I was part of a large group, a leadership academy throughout Florida, 16 of us spread out through the entire state. And everyone has the same story, whether they're coming from the country area or they're, big city Jacksonville, they don't have inventory. So that's a really interesting point, and I think we need to communicate it. To what Jessie said before about the bailout that we had, and what a country, I don't think people realize how much of a bailout that was. It's like 5 times the amount of money that was used in 2008 to only bail out banks. But this went to citizens. And there'll be another stimulus package coming out. So we are strong. To say what a country, we never lost Latin America or Europe. And I think we're going to see them coming stronger because their dollar is getting stronger. So they're going to have more buying power. And they're coming here not just because of our stability financially, but we have one of the best medical systems in the world. So if you're in a pandemic and you're concerned about getting proper health treatment, where are you going to be? Guess what? Miami and Florida are leaders in that industry as well. So we're not the big car dealership. We're not the factory state, but we are very big on medical industry. One of our fastest growing industries now is venture capitalism. So again, we're seeing all of these financial institutions coming down here. Amazon's down here. How many of you knew there's a very advanced fiber optic loop in Homestead? A couple of you. And you also may know then that it has really never been used. It was installed years ago. It was a massive investment. And now you're seeing these companies that are coming down, they're going to take advantage of it. So we have so much infrastructure here with the NAP Center, with that fiber optic loop, some of the most technologically advanced buildings. And to, again, Jessie's point, now we're going to start designing for something else. And it's going to be the post-COVID building. And that building is going to carry a lot of value because it's going to have systems, amenities, and different benefits that just don't exist today in what we have. We had already been adapting our buildings, and especially multifamily, we changed our amenities. People didn't want so much the pool. Now you had more work at home type stuff, and we were moving in that direction. Now you're going to have more healthcare items, more wellness amenities in your common areas as well as in the unit. So those units are going to have value. I think you're going to see existing inventory owned by Latin Americans and foreign nationals that's going to sell to that New Yorker, that person that our general real estate community is going to benefit from. And we're going to need to come talk to that seller about how to reinvest in some of this new technology advanced buildings and keep that process going, because our prices are going to continue to climb. Not just in single family home, but as well in condos. So I think those are all good points, to what we said about the strengthening currency internationally is again going to bring more of these buyers. And to Fernando's point, is it a good time to launch a new building? Yes, the right building. Properly thought out, designed, not just throw up another matchbox. We're not going to pump out $500,000-$600,000 units that are just a simple thing. Each building is going to need to have its story, its character, its purpose for the location it's in. Often we think only about that skyline, but there's so much more to Miami-Dade County than that area. What's happening in Doral is outstanding. What's happening here in Coral Gables is impressive. And this office building is going to benefit from all these companies that are coming down here because they're looking at locations like Coral Gables to put their headquarters, which means now we have to deliver new product in Coral Gables, whether it's these large townhomes that we're delivering just down the street or high-end condominiums which are being delivered down the street as well. So you're providing more living environments in the area, but you've got to design it for that specific market.
Thank you very much. So thank you guys very much. Thank you all for joining us here. I actually got something for each one of you guys. Also, I wanted to thank you for being here, for pushing me. Thank you for working with me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to get into new construction. And Craig, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity also. So, yes. So Danny's going to talk a little bit about the association. Just so you guys know, next year I'm going to have 6 of these events. They're all going to be exclusive. The next one that I'm going to have is an only women panel. It's going to be very, very interesting. I'm still working out on the location. I'll keep you guys posted. And then Danny will speak about the association.
I mean, again, I'm the 2021 president for the Association of Realtors. For those of you that didn't know that are here at the beginning of the presentation. But I think it's really important to point out how much was done behind the scenes for our industry and for all the members. Jessie mentioned something about, the associations and the condo association, how they were doing it. Although Jessie's a president and he's done a very good job in what he did, there was a lot of bad actors. There was a lot of bad actors in associations that didn't allow people that purchased a property outside of the condo to move. They didn't allow people to move in. They didn't allow you to do anything. Forget about us being essential services and being able to show a property, but you couldn't get an inspection, you couldn't get a plumber in, you couldn't move in or out of a building, and it was ridiculous. So we took the charge, we met with the governor, then we realized it was DBPR, so we met with Secretary Bashir, and we actually were able to remove emergency powers from associations. We got that order removed and put the power back in your client's hands. So what's important is when you run into a situation with an association, your customer, your client, your owner, seller, or buyer is the one that needs to make the complaint to DBPR. But our association went after that and lobbied to get this taken care of. We mentioned what we did with the virtual notary and being able to do closings electronically. That was a huge win and so timely. To even lobby the national federal government for being able to include 1099s in unemployment or in the CARES package. Again, these were all huge wins, and the list goes on and on and on. So know that your association is more than just the MLS. Know that there's more support for you individually and your personal needs, and the public's needs as well. So we do a lot of things for the general community, whether we're fighting for water quality, which is our biggest amenity in Florida, whether we're fighting for homestead exemptions, and that sort of thing. So if any of you have any questions, please reach out to me or any one of our leaders, like JC, and know that your contribution to RPAC, when you do that voluntary contribution on your renewal, is very, very, very good investment. And I urge you to invest more in RPAC because those dollars is what helps us get to the legislation and to lobby these issues for you and for the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And once again, guys, panel, thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys being here. Everybody, thank you very much for joining us. Looking forward to seeing you guys in February. Have happy holidays. Take care. Thank you.